making a video. Yeah, it's outside, but it's really such a nice day. I forgot I have to go around. Gotta cut that tree down. So much to do, so few means to do it. Anyway, cloning, I did bring that up in the last video about value. And it is a good mechanism for understanding, getting a perspective on things and recognizing the subject, what it really means when you're talking about the interactions between humans. If you imagine the world being your clone, and then just start taking a little bits away from yourself, from the clones, it does, where the hell am I? This ain't gonna work. Yeah, I'm in the middle of the frick of hell, in shorts. Yeah, it really is a beautiful day. Ow. Ow. I don't think this will work, but I'll try it anyway. Sorry. Where was I? I ended up way over here. Anyway, it's, this is a much easier to navigate tree. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just saying, obviously if you had a bunch of clones of yourself in the world, you'd be, conscious of the value exchanges. You wouldn't want to do anything to harm yourself, essentially. You'd always be aware of the fact that there's no difference between them and you, and, there's no way of evading something by imposing it on them. That would logically occur to you that just won't work. That you can't just migrate the broken leg to one of your clones and have successfully accomplished anything meaningful. So that was good. It's good as an argument, a way of, my shoes on, I guess I never tied them or something. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I know I should take care of this stuff beforehand, but, life's complicated. Tying shoes and all this other shit you have to do. So much crap. Don't kick. Yeah, I gotta make sure I don't hit the button on the back either. Anyway, something. So I wanted to say a little bit more, but I don't want to be saying the same thing. But I think it is important in terms of the other thing I brought up was the subject again of, you have the feeling self and the thinking self. You have the thing doing the thing, and then you have the thing that interprets it into reality. Interprets what's happening in terms of giving it perspective, understanding it in the lineage of a lifetime and all that kind of stuff. All that perspective stuff is stuff imposed by your mind, your intelligence, your knowledge base. And so, here we're in this position again where we have the philosopher tied to this one organism, and it creates an automatic kind of corruption, because how much of the philosopher is going to be change his philosophy, be corrupted by the nature of this personal, visceral outcomes, things that are going to happen to its monkey, the monkey it's riding on. I think it's very rich for conversation. I just haven't really, I haven't got the most out of this metaphor, or this idea of understanding that your most intelligent, most rational way of, it's the Mr. Spock, Captain Kirk thing again, almost. It's just recognizing that there's these two elements to your existence, this psychological element and then this knowledgeable, logical element. And so when we're going to have a philosophical conversation about value, the idea of making a big deal about the fact that, I personally feel, beyond the fact that this informs me of what feelings are. Yes, I have personal feelings. I have a personal vanity. I have a personal subjective taste. I have lots of those things. But I'm not we wouldn't bring those to the philosophical table and say, let's have an argument about who's the prettiest or something. I mean, that would be idiotic. So it's just in this idea that we feel that it's being used, and it's just so irritating, you know, that we can't even get to the point where we're making this concession to the philosophical argument that let's agree that we know what feelings are, you know, that we know they come in these categories of good and bad. And we're not talking about your psychological ambitions. We're not talking about how much you want to live or how much you want to see your grandchildren or whatever your ambitions in life are, or your, you know, compulsive fears or something. That's not the subject. The subject is, what do we do in living? And we experience. And we experience pleasant and unpleasant things. And depending on your status in the world, it could be stated as a philosophical presumption or statement or premise. Yeah, that certain stations are likely to be quite burdensome in terms of you know, the degrading of your welfare versus other stations in life. And that would be the premise of a philosophical conversation, maybe about, you know, economic productivity or, you know, some other statement. I mean, it wouldn't be all this dissection. You wouldn't sit there and, you know, start you know, changing the game into something you can't even have an evaluation. You can't. I mean, you obviously couldn't argue the benefits or the liabilities, the benefits or the inadequacies of some economic theory. You know, if you're going to all of a sudden deny that it matters whether people are working 15 hours a day or 5 hours a day. I mean, if you're going to take away the meaning of the reality of those state changes, the fact that they have a reality to them, that being in a different state means something, that having to work 5 hours means something compared to working 15 hours, you can't talk about the economy. So I'm just saying you can't have a philosophical conversation about value or human interaction, you know, if you're going to deny the fundamental nature of the interactions and the exchanges, which are, you know, we have to endure negative, unpleasant sensations to facilitate the possibility, at least the possibility, you know, of some positive gain. And that for human beings, the other complexity of this base system, the base would be just these, what do we feel every day, is when you get into the whole argument about our psychology and what are we addicted to, what are we dependent on, what are creating our feelings. So the fact that people have angst or worry, you know, regarding their mortality or some other kind of issue, yeah, well, that's a personal psychological issue. It's not really a philosophical issue, beyond explaining contextually, you know, that you know, you could just explain the nature of your non-existence before you got here, and the fact that you know, there's no evidence that where you were was a bad place. You know, you don't have any burn scars at birth. But yeah, I'm kind of going a little left of where I was heading. So, you know, maybe I'll stop here and add some more later and whatnot. Seems a reasonable approach. So I'll go for a little running. But yeah, I mean, for this late in the year, lovely day. Anyway, until next time. Such. Yeah, back. Yeah, this really is humid, warm. Kind of overdressed. Anyway. So what were we? Oh yeah, mind over the matter thing. But yeah, it just seems. I mean, well, I guess everything has to be explained. I mean, obviously, you can't just say suffering sucks and people don't get it. You're saying, wow, I'm saying, wow, didn't think I'd have to go there. So I guess explaining that your brain contextualizes things, is capable of recognizing that if I do make a clone of myself, and he's right over here, and that that's really me over there. I mean, if he has my personality and my thoughts and my everything, and we're just going to go our separate ways now, it would be just as if I was going my separate way. So I couldn't really, there'd be no economy in me thinking of trying to cheat him. Every deal I made with my clone would have to be kind of straight up because I can't win by cheating myself, kind of thing. And the logic of just recognizing, once you recognize that your feelings aren't special, that you're not the only person capable of suffering, not even that you're not the only, that you're just in a sea of it. It's a mass of it out there. And just recognize that when that's happening to other people, there's no rational equation that makes it sensible to think it's not real. It doesn't mean something. It's not just as important as if it was your clone or you. Yeah. So anyway, I've already done this argument so many times. I mean, you can certainly despise other humans. You can think other humans are garbage because they have lousy thought programs running in their heads, their brains. But the fact that they're sentient, they feel, you can't undo that. You can't just come up with some rhetoric to make it go away and say it doesn't matter if I hurt them, it doesn't matter if they suffer. I mean, outside of some sort of context where you're, pretending you're going to educate them with some pain. I mean, obviously it can be educational. Suffering does enlighten you. It does make you aware. Each level of it you experience, you sometimes, it does wake you up in a sense, startle your perceptual mind. When you have moments where you say, gee, I didn't think it could get that bad. I mean, I've had a couple of those plateau moments in my life where, you thought you knew what pain was, and then you had the real deal dumped on you, and you said, oh shit, this is what people are enduring, or, you just had a whole new appreciation for how bad it can be. Yeah. So I'm just saying, so once you've tasted it, I guess I'm just saying that once you have some kind of idea of the range of sensual experience, pretty much you can imagine, your worst day multiplied by 2 weeks or something, and saying, gee, yeah, I couldn't stand that, or some other kind of scenario where you get some sort of perspective, kind of recognize that, it does have there are limits to tolerance, limits to endurability, but that's when it gets a little bit contextual for the psychology, because most of wrong way to start the sentence, I suppose. We're in this dilemma where we're driven by desire also. It's not just a revulsion at avoiding the bad stuff. It's a desire to attain something, a compulsion to win, to get, to have. Even the more short-term kind of, you get hungry every day. And then you have these bigger hungers that are longer and more long-term in terms of their gratification. And it's those motivations that propel you into risk and propel you into accepting that you will have to pay a price for your comfort, your satisfaction, your satisfied ambition. But the real, I guess, the real game of ethics is those decisions you make that will affect others, and how presumptive you're allowed to be in terms of what you say or believe, how you rationalize, how they'll receive the gift of your influence. Yeah, I guess you could put it that way. Yeah, that's sort of a separate subject, though. The psychological elements of our life experience. It's kind of different than the truth of it, which is kind of the visceral part. What did you really feel is all that's going to matter in the end. When you really calculate the game the rats are playing, you know, we're just migrating through the maze, and you really just calculate the damage. You know, like you know, you could say, you know, that one lost its right leg, and this one lost its left leg, and this happened to that one happened to this one, and you could do that kind of with our experiences. You know, did we get Lyme disease 5 times, or, you know, did we get ALS, or did we have cancer 3 times, and did we have this, and did we do that? And that'll be sort of the score of our life, and the other side of the slate will be whatever your achieved ambitions were, the character of your desire. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, I said it with making a face. The character of your desire. Yeah, because desire is such a silly, you know, ponage mechanism. I mean, it's just the DNA owning you. You know, this whole ego crap and ambition crap, and, you know, it's just such a, you know, it's such a you know, it's just such an imposition. It's such a not something intelligence would say, oh yes, let's make you feel like shit until you get, you know, your gold star next to your name, or whatever the crap is to keep you playing. Can't die until I get my gold star. Yeah, which is just, you know, so stupid. Yeah, see, it's kind of hard to separate the subject of value from this mechanism of desire, because the mechanism of desire doesn't allow us to do an honest evaluation of value. It corrupts our perception of value. If all we knew were the next 5 minutes, if all there was going to be is 5 more minutes, you know, our value judgments would be very different. And, you know, we'd be much more interested in just being sensually comfortable than worrying about any bigger desires of what does everybody think of me, or, you know, did I, you know, accomplish something, or all that crap would kind of be useless, and you'd be kind of just thinking about, you know, how to have the, you know, how to set yourself up to be comfortable with the transition kind of thing. It would be just much more immediate, and it would be less of these corrupting desires to tell you what has value. You would kind of know that what has value is how comfortable am I. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like when somebody says something like, you know, if you have your health, you have everything. You know, it's a cliche, and it's a reductionism of sorts. But it is quite true in many ways, and it, you know, so I'm not mocking it. But it's just such a simplistic reduction of the complexity of our life to this idea that, yeah, it's you got nothing, you know, if you don't have a foundation, you know, and your health is the foundation. yeah, kind of. And so it's like in those moments where you kind of lose appreciation, you know, where you're wanting for something bigger and better and bolder and all that kind of crap, and you're not appreciating, you know, you're lucky you know, to have what you got. And so those kind of value judgments are personal, and they're not very logical. I think we can be, you know, we can do what I just did, which is sort of attempt to, you know, extract it, you know, from the psychology and try to recognize that, you know, in the end it's all just a head game. You know, it's all just your brain that creates all of this noise, and that sometimes you can turn a knob here or there and change the noise, change the sound, you know, and make a very simple game quite playable, quite profitable in terms of your state of being. Yeah. So, yeah, our language just isn't great at having this conversation, you know, but because of these tricky concepts of the sentient state of being, comfortable, uncomfortable, as it's provided by suffering. You know, obviously, there's a big difference between an unsatisfied desire and a migraine headache. You know, and we don't necessarily have good words to describe these different kinds of pain, these different kinds of unpleasantness. And then they end up in a conversation where we end up comparing, you know, apple feelings with orange desires, and, you know, that's a little messy. But again, in the end, I think the, you know, mouse-rat metaphor works in the sense that you can kind of see a life in hindsight, and you can, in overview, start measuring and counting up the damage, you know, the bad stuff, and calculate a solution. So, you know, most irritatingly about the conversation about this subject is that the people having the conversation have not died. You know, they have not experienced a big hunk of life, which is dying. And they certainly haven't done it in a purely average way. You know, they haven't endured the average death. And yet they're judging and saying, you know, it's all okay. It's not a big deal. Even though I haven't done it, it's not a big deal. You know, they're not even aware of the fact that they can't judge the value of life until they've lived what it is, as it's handed out in the routine way, the average way. Living the average mammal's existence on planet Earth is not a good thing. It's brutal and short. And, you know, that's where this value thing is important. Can't go that way. Oh, I can, but the risk to reward is limited. Where this is the safer bet, except for the prickers. I have to navigate. Pricker, 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 pricker. Anyway, so I guess that's enough for this installment. We'll see if I add any more and such. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff on this. I mean, it's just like a, you know, terribly, awfully long videos. saying the same thing many different ways, but kind of what's required. Asparagus ferns. We like the delicacy of ferns. Very interesting. Doesn't seem a very practical design, but apparently does work. I guess a little bit of a finishing up, summing up thingy or something. So, yeah, this is the subject of what your brain can know. And your brain can know lots of things. It can know photons. It can know that there's photons going from me to the camera. That's what makes things happen and all that kind of stuff. And so we can know things about consciousness and about interactions with other organisms that other organisms might not know, because they don't know what we know. Anyway, shouldn't fiddle with anything while I'm videoing. And it's just like we have the conscious experience to to use as evidence, and whatever it is, even if it is just as I believe it is, it's just an illusion created inside of a brain. It's one hell of an illusion. It's an illusion you have to take seriously. Even though it's a synthetic creation, it is the most meaningful thing the universe has ever created. Yeah. I mean, it's value rich. Let's say the most value rich thing. And yeah, I don't think it should need any further. I mean, I just don't think I should have to explain to conscious beings the fact that it means something, their consciousness, and that they know for a certainty that it would be a bad thing if they were to experience horrible suffering for no good reason. They would know that. That would be a meaningful waste, a waste of something meaningful. And as soon as I've accepted my consciousness being meaningful, it takes no intelligence whatsoever, a very minor amount of intelligence, for me to extend that knowledge to the realization that the other humans are sentient and that the other animals are sentient, and their welfare, their comfort is important. Not what they want, not what they desire, not even what their sensibilities are, what makes them happy or what makes them sad or what makes them, what's the right word to use, feel, but the feelings themselves are meaningful, even if the things they're feeling about aren't. That's a way to put it. Anyway, that'll have to do. Yeah, seems I've been over it before, so I've done enough videos on this, I think, to, I'm conscious. That makes me aware that feelings are important. I've tasted them. I know they're important. Step 2, I draw the rational conclusion that there's no substantive difference, substantive in terms of being capable of experiencing good and bad sensations between me and the other sentient beings. And that's really number 2, can cover the animal. I can do sentient beings, but I mean, usually you have to qualify first humans and then take this next leap to animals. And obviously animals are having sensitive experiences, feeling experiences. And the feelings are frankly more important than our thoughts. What we think isn't nearly as important as what we feel. the only thing important about thinking is that it gives you the ability to recognize how important it is to maximize your effect on the feeling organisms you're coexisting with, and that you will implicate in going into the future their welfare. But that's where the value is. Yeah, no, that's enough. Alright, till next time. This lens isn't bad, but I have to have it sort of stuck on there with a kind of rubbery glue, and seems like a good temporary solution that I don't want to have to change into a permanent one. So anyway, but we'll see how it holds up. Alright, till next time. Such.